Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Job Hunter podcast with your host, Tim French. On today's episode, we will be discussing some of the lesser known aspects of professional football. Mainly what goes on behind the scenes to ensure that you know when your season ticket is released, what the club's new kit is going to look like, or which players you should keep an eye on. Here's hoping my questions don't get flagged for offside, and VAR won't be required to settle any particularly difficult disputes. If you're a regular, you know the drill. If you're not, sit back, relax, and let's get on with the show. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Ed Barber, Digital Marketing Manager for Championship side Queen's Park Rangers. Ed, why don't you start off by giving the listeners a bit more of a background into what you do at the club?
Yeah, so hi everyone. My role is quite broad. And it kind of has quite a lot of responsibilities, but the essence of what I do is to implement marketing campaigns for our ticketing, our retail and hospitality departments through our digital channels. So that can be through emails and then writing stories to go on social media and the website as well. So it's kind of getting the information out from all our commercial streams out to the supporters in various methods.
So for any of our listeners that may not be familiar with Queen's Park Rangers, do you want to give a bit of background into them as a club and what exactly, who are Queen's Park Rangers?
Yeah, so QPR are a team in the Championship, which is like the second tier of English football. They're based in West London, Shepherd's Bush area. And they're quite a small club with, well, not small club, quite a big club with a lot of history. And they've got a real emphasis on the community in a lot of the work that they do off the field as well. So you'll see quite a lot of initiatives that they've done throughout the last few years to just improve and kind of support the community. For example, the game for Grenfell, which people might know about, will be something which the club worked on to support those which were impacted by that tragedy as well. So, football club in the Championship, lots of highs and lows, but it's part of the fun.
And so obviously people know about the players and the performances on the field. What tends to go on behind the scenes? Obviously, you said you work in marketing, but I imagine QPR is a pretty big operation. Is there more than just a marketing team at QPR?
Yeah, definitely. And this is one of the things which I thought about when I first went into sport, and it was like, oh, what am I going to expect? Is there going to be hundreds and hundreds of people behind the scenes helping with everything? And actually, it's not quite the case. We have quite a small team who do quite a lot of work. So we kind of work with a lot of departments myself. So that would be whether that be media, whether that be our hospitality, our retail, our ticketing, our operations. It's quite a lot which goes on. And it's kind of chipping in for a lot of different projects and making sure they all get completed all as a team. So, it's quite a small team. But there's quite a broad scope within your role. And I would always say that every week is different and you never really have the same day working in football because stuff changing and coming up quite a lot.
And how would you say your job varies over the year? Obviously, I can imagine during the football season, it's probably different from, say, in the off season.
Yeah, and it's one of those funny things which actually people say, oh, when the season's over, I bet you do nothing and you just go on holiday for a few weeks. And actually, I'd probably say it's the opposite. It's probably our busiest time is the off season. We take quite a lot of preparation into the new year for things such as season tickets, memberships, new kit. There's quite a lot to prepare in that stage. And then during the season, obviously, it's much of a focus on match days and the sort of promotions and retail ticketing stuff that goes on as well. So obviously, in the last year, it's been quite a different experience in terms of all of that. But yeah, it's one of those where all year round there's always stuff going on, whether it's during the season or preparation to a new campaign.
And do you have kind of like a favourite bit of your job? There must be some bits that you think, oh God, I wish I didn't have to do that. And others you think, oh, I really love my job for this.
Yeah, and I think that's got to be match days. It's got to be the best bit about it. Like you sit behind your computer for 5 days a week and then on a Saturday, 3 o'clock, you're going to get to watch some football and all that work that you put in is, well, just like you kind of feel it's a bit of a reward at the end of it, which is nice. But obviously at the moment it's kind of sitting behind a computer again on the Saturday and watching on a stream, which is a bit different. But yeah, look, when fans are back in the stadium and there's that buzz and that atmosphere on the match day, yeah, I don't think you can really beat it.
So it seems you've got a fair amount of responsibility on your young shoulders, and it'd be interesting to hear how you kind of fell into the role. It's not something you'd imagine a 24-year-old being the marketing manager for such a big entity.
Yeah, so it all started off when I was in university. Part of my course, I had to do a placement year. And I remember I was searching around all year, just trying to find something. You just search for these big companies like Adidas, Nike, and all of these, and you get through stages and it doesn't really happen. And this job came up at QPR, which I was lucky enough to get. And just the experience I had throughout the year and the opportunities and projects I got to go involved with just really developed me as a person, I thought. And I got into my final year of university, and I just remember that this opportunity came up again, and I applied out of, I was just like, I may as well. I was applying for everything, just hoping to see what happened. And lucky enough, they wanted to have me back, and it's kind of just kicked on from there. So I'm now into my third season in at the club. So it's going well so far. So long may it continue.
Obviously, you've kind of mentioned roundabout way about coronavirus. So obviously, if you were going to address the elephant in the room, it's not been an easy year for English football. And obviously, everyone's had to adapt. How has QPR and how have your team adapted to the issues that have been highlighted by coronavirus?
Yeah, I think everyone's been impacted by it, and it's been quite a big change for everyone in the way they work and what they do. And we were no different. I remember the day it happened, the first day I was sent home to work from home, I was like, oh, we'll be back in a couple of weeks. And I've hardly been in the office since, and it's been a case of everyone kind of chipping in and making sure that they kind of pick up on the uncertainty and the unknown, which has kind of come through as a result. For one, streaming has become a massive part of football now. With fans not able to attend, we've really had to make sure that supporters are aware of the streaming service, how to use it, and kind of what they're entitled to, as well as season ticket holders, etc. So that was probably the main big change on our side. I don't think many people expected it to be, oh, you can watch football behind a screen for 9 games, and then it's carried on to this season as well. But I kind of feel that even now that there's a lot of uncertainty and unknown about when fans will fully return and what will be the restrictions, etc. So the whole thing was completely different in the way we worked as well, in terms of online retail became quite a big thing as well in terms of our merchandising. Obviously, with the Superstore not being open, people had to shop online if they wanted to purchase things. So it was kind of just making sure we had all the resources in place to make sure that we were well set, however long lockdown lasted in the first instant, and then has started again in the current one we're in as well.
So obviously you're hoping to get some fans back in probably as soon as next week. And how exactly are you managing that? How do you manage who gets in and who doesn't get in? And how is it working behind the scenes to make sure that everyone that wants to access football can access football again?
Yeah, so look, it's really exciting to have fans back again. And I think that's what everyone wants. It's been a long time without it. But obviously, luckily, I don't have to make all the finer technical details of it. But I know we've got season ticket holders in place this year who will be able to come back in. And then as obviously the crowds start to get bigger and bigger, we can get more and more fans in. So there'll be members and other people, and hopefully we can get back to normality in some form sooner rather than later. But I imagine it'll all be dependent on what tier London's put in for one, and kind of what the restrictions are on people travelling around. One of the main things is when these announcements are made, there's kind of the expectation that we'll just know exactly what the plan is straight away, and this is what's going to happen within a couple of hours. But we actually find out this information exactly the same time as everyone else. We don't get it any earlier. So it's kind of reacting as soon as that information comes out. We will put a plan in place and try and get it out as soon as possible, which is one of the big challenges, because you're working towards these tight deadlines. For example, Boris announced that from the 2nd of December, which is next week. It doesn't give you too much time to get everything in place, but obviously there's been some stuff going on behind the scenes in preparation for this as well.
And obviously, managing expectations is probably the key aspect. Interacting with your fans, and how exactly are you doing that at the moment? How do you keep your fans informed and up to date on the comings and goings of the government and the club in general?
Yeah, and I think that's one of the key things over this whole 9-month period is communication, and we've tried to do that as best as possible through like all of our channels. So we've got social media channels which have large followings on Twitter, on Facebook, Instagram, etc. But we've also got the website as well, and our email platform, which we can communicate with different fan base, different groups and segments, and also go on a larger scale as well. So it's very much making sure that when we've got important news to go out to the supporters, we get it out in the correct and as many channels as possible to make sure it reaches as many people as possible as well.
You mentioned some of the charity work you've done in the past, obviously with the fundraising for Grenfell Tower. Obviously, as much as professional football's been affected by the coronavirus, I think grassroots football's also been affected. Have QPR done any work or helped out in any way to help the local community in such a difficult time?
Yeah, definitely. And I know over lockdown, our community trust have done unbelievable work to support the local community. And they've run a number of different initiatives and helped out in as many ways as they can. For example, they had a campaign called Are You OK?, which focused on contacting vulnerable supporters and those in the local area who needed help. So I know our safeguarding team did a great job of contacting everyone who needed help throughout the last few months and advising them and signposting them to help where possible. So on top of that, there's been food bank donations by our players and help from our community trust as well. So I know anything we're able to get involved in, they're always keen, our community trust, to help and support wherever possible.
So if you could describe a typical day to our listeners, what would you say that looks like from an Ed Barber marketing expert perspective?
Yeah, that's a difficult one because it literally does change every day. But a normal day in preparation for, let's say, a match day very much focuses on the communication and the build up to everything that's coming on that day and the weekend. So, for example, we would normally send out a newsletter or an email communication, for example, on my side with the latest information about the game itself, where they can watch it, if they can get tickets, for example, if that was possible without the restrictions, and very much just planning for the day ahead. On a match day, we run a fan zone as well, so it's making sure that we've got that set up, and whether we've got players visiting to meet fans and stuff like that. Or small things like that, you've just got to make sure everything's in place. And once you get into that routine of this is what you do here, and here, then it fits in quite smoothly most of the time. But yeah, it's very much communication based and making sure that we've got all the information out for our next upcoming event or game.
And how would you say the mood changes dependent on the results table? Does it change depending on the results table, or do you think it's the same?
Yeah, massively. Football is a results-based game, and my job couldn't be any easier when we're winning games, but it becomes very difficult when you're losing games and the form isn't so great. So yeah, anything we do, we've also got to be wary of the reaction and like the atmosphere around the fans as well. It's something which I always keep an eye on, but you can't control that. Unfortunately, that is football. You're going to win some games, you're going to lose some games as well, and you kind of just got to adapt and kind of work around the situations you're in. So yeah, obviously you'd love to be winning football games every week, but that doesn't always happen.
So what would you say drew you into working this such niche profession, this sports marketing profession? And obviously, did you always have QPR in the back of your head as a somewhere you wanted to be, or was it kind of only came to it when you were looking for those placement jobs?
Yeah, so I've always really been interested in sport. I played football, I played cricket, so I've always kind of had that background. And my course was based around sport itself. So I did sport management. So I kind of knew that was the direction I wanted to go in. And it was kind of what sort of branch in the business side I wanted to go towards. I've always had an interest in social media as well, which I can kind of integrate into my job now. And at uni, I kind of had that interest in marketing, so I've gone down that route. And since then, it's been enjoyable, and I've got to learn a bit more. But it's one of those where you kind of integrate with so many different departments, and you learn so much. You kind of build your portfolio and skill set as well. So look, we'll see what happens. But I'm thoroughly enjoying the marketing side at the moment, and QPR was just by chance happened from placement, and then again I got lucky enough to come away with a job out of uni. So yeah, very lucky to do what I do, and it's interesting, and it's kind of kept me going and keeps me motivated during these times as well.
And would you say you've had any career highlights yet? Is there anything particularly that stands out?
Yeah, so there's probably two that stand out for me. The first one's probably the game for Grenfell during my placement year. Like, I didn't have the biggest role in that event, but to have a small contribution and feel part of it, it was quite special. I didn't realise or didn't really know what to expect from it because it was quite a major event. There was quite a lot of publicity on it, and there was quite a lot of media around. And I just remember the whole buzz of the day and the whole feeling of everyone coming together from local communities and different football clubs and people all over the country. And yeah, you just kind of felt that you were part of a small thing, which made a big difference in the end. And then the other one was probably more of a personal one this year when you kind of launch your first big campaign. And this year it was a season ticket campaign, and all these things come with months and months preparation. A lot of people think that the projects we run and the kit launches we run are just done a couple of weeks before, but actually there's probably a good 6 to 9 months of preparation into all of this stuff we do. So you work through all these months and make sure that everything's correct. And when you launched it and it's gone successfully and it's all going okay, then you can kind of take a breath and say, yeah, actually that was quite good. I enjoyed that one. And you move, and then it's quickly on to the next project after that. But yeah, it's nice to see it being successful and get some positive reaction from the fans as well.
I like to ask my guests about the perks of the job, and I think you probably have some of the best perks that I can think of. What would you say are some of the perks?
Look, it's just that whole thing of being around like a professional sporting environment. And like, I think when I first started, I was a bit starstruck. I was like, oh God, look, there's professional sportsmen here and then. But then you just realize exactly the same as you and can have normal conversations with them. And it's very, very relaxed in that sort of sense. But probably the biggest perks I've mentioned before is just being able to go to a match day and watch football and contribute to that, because these fans that attend, it's more than a hobby. It's like a passion for these supporters. So knowing you can contribute a bit into their experience and make it better is always nice, because in marketing, you might be dealing with numbers most of the time, and you don't really get to see the faces of these people until you actually see them at a match day and enjoying the day itself. So yeah, that's always quite nice. And just at the moment, it's just taking it step by step and seeing when we can get back to those match day experiences, hopefully.
And would you say you've always been a QPR fan, or have you become a QPR fan since working for the organisation?
Yeah, so I actually support Spurs. I don't actually I didn't support QPR, but now I'm a bigger fan.
Good answer.
I'm a bigger fan as everyone else, because I know on a match day how much the result means to the fans, and then also my week the following week and what I've got planned. So I'm cheering every goal as much as every supporter. So yeah, it's grown on me as much, and now I just follow the results and all the streams as well. So yeah, it's important, and yeah, it's very much grown on me in the last few years since I joined the club.
So obviously you mentioned you're a Spurs fan there. Have you seen any of the Amazon Originals All or Nothing series on Tottenham Hotspur? And would you say it's interesting to compare the kind of the backroom aspects of Hotspur's organisation to your own? Yeah,
definitely. And that's probably the main reason I actually watched it. I was like, oh, it'll be interesting to compare, to see what Spurs do to compare to what we do. And look, the scale of Spurs compared to QPR is quite big off the field. But it's interesting to see how some things compare and how some things differ. And look, any insight into how a sports organisation is doing something, you can learn things off as well, which is always interesting. And I know there's been other ones such as Man City and Sunderland and Leeds and a few others. So these are coming more into the norm now, but it just gives an interesting insight to supporters as well to kind of understand what actually goes on behind the scenes, because most of the time they'll only see the match day when they attend, but actually they get to understand quite a lot what goes on behind the scenes and what kind of preparation is needed in the build up to that as well.
Is there any risk of seeing Ed Barber's name up in lights on the big screen anytime soon?
There's no plans of that at the moment. I'm not sure I'm quite as interesting as some of the people that are featured, but you can't rule it out, can you? If I get told, I'm sure the trailers will come out.
Well, I'll have to grab your autograph when you walk in the red carpet for the Oscars or the BAFTAs or something. What would you say QPR means to you as a person? And I think it seems to me like football clubs are more than just clubs. They're religions, they're people's everything. And I think you really have to be invested into it. Do you think that's a fair comment?
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's massive to me now. Like, first of all, on a personal note, they've given me my first chance in the industry, which is quite a difficult one to get into, I feel. But then also, like, it's quite one of those where every moment you kind of ride the wave of the club, whether it's the highs or the lows, you're kind of all in it together. And if you're winning, then it's great and you can kind of jump off that buzz and enjoy it. But then also when it's more difficult times and you're losing, etc., or you've hit some tough form, then you kind of feel that and you're all together at the same time. So yeah, it's definitely something where I feel it's a big family sort of environment, whether it's the supporters or the staff as well. And it's a club I'm also very proud to work for as well. The community work as I've mentioned before, is phenomenal, and it impacts so many people. And to know that you're involved in an organisation which wants to contribute to people and make a difference for the better, then yeah, it's always good, and it's something that you can be to be proud of.
So, Fantasy 11. Who are the 11 players, if you could bring any player to the club, that you'd want to see, head the QPR lineup every week?
Yeah, I've got to be careful here because all the players are great as they are. But
past and present as well. You can take anyone from history as well if that helps.
Oh, good. Okay, so let's start. In goal, who would I take as a keeper? I was a big fan of David James when I was growing up.
Rate him.
He was the England goalie. You've got to back him, really. And then I feel it's going to be predominantly Spurs plays here. It's going to be my Spurs 11 most likely. But I'd probably have Kyle Walker at right back. I remember when I was a kid and I used to go and watch football with my dad. I saw Kyle Walker just make some like really good impacts on the wing back position, and probably on the other side I'd stick Danny Rose, because they work together quite nicely. And centre backs is a tough one. Who have I seen? Neda Manua, the QPR captain, used to be captain. He was really strong and dedicated captain when I watched him. So I'd put him in there with probably Michael Dawson, former Spurs captain as well. And then who would I have in midfield? So this is tough. You probably got to go for a midfield trio of something along the lines of Gerrard, Scholes and Lampard, the iconic three. In midfield for England, and I'm sure they would do a good job. And then up front, you've got to have probably, well, you can't really look past the best, can you? You'd probably go Ronaldo, Neymar and Messi, and then you've got a pretty strong lineup there. So it's a mixture of great players currently and some players I've seen and made an impact before as well.
I mean, you'd be broke as a club, but my God, that'd be a good team, wouldn't it?
Yeah, exactly. I feel FFP might restrict some of those.
I like to do a little segment which I've christened Tim's 3 tips. It's terribly named. No doubt everyone will hate it and I have to change it. But I like to ask my guests to give 3 tips on how to improve something that people can take away. So obviously you're a marketing whiz. You're a guru when it comes to marketing. So if you could give some advice to any budding social media marketers out there, what 3 key tips would you give them to help engage better with their audience, do you think?
Yeah. So probably the first one I would take is look out for opportunities when you're young, whether they're voluntary or not. I remember when I started off, I did some voluntary work at my local cricket club doing their social media accounts. And then at university, I marketed a triathlon event. And to be honest, I had no idea about what a triathlon really was, what it involved, and kind of what the process was to making an event. So, but by doing it, I learned so much. And from there, it kind of held me in good stead because you can kind of network and go from there. So definitely take all the opportunities you can get, whether it's voluntary or not, because building your network is probably one of the best things you can do in this industry. The next one is probably just kind of making sure you have a good understanding of your audience. So whether that's knowing what the atmosphere is, whether it's positive or negative, and kind of reacting to that and reflecting it in the work that you do. So you'll know when it's a good time to promote stuff or push stuff out. And if it's not, then you kind of just wait or put it on hold. So yeah, knowing your audience is obviously important because those are the people you're trying to target and segment as well. And then finally, just make sure you have a clear understanding of the work that you're doing. Sometimes I've made mistakes in important emails or web stories that have gone out. So make sure it's clear, and if anyone else is going to read it, they understand it as well. Because yeah, if people don't understand it, you're not doing your job very well.
And proofread. I've made the mistake many times of sending a tweet or a post and completely getting the spelling wrong, and then you look like an idiot. So I think if I could add one in there, it's definitely proofread.
Yeah, definitely. We've all made that mistake, I feel.
Look, Ed, it's been an absolute pleasure. Where can our listeners find you online if they were going to look you up? And obviously QPR, you can find QPR quite easily, but if they want to find an Ed Barber specific. Yeah,
perfect. Well, come and find me on LinkedIn, and if they've got any questions, search me up, Ed Barber, and I'm sure I'll come up under QPR. So yeah, if anyone has any questions about the industry or maybe starting up in marketing, I'll be happy to answer any.
It's been an absolute pleasure, Ed. All the best with the rest of the season, and I hope you get some fans in there, and I hope life gets a bit easier for you guys at QPR. Keep in touch and let me know how you get on, and I look forward to see you guys in winning form.
Perfect. Thank you very much for having me.
Huge thanks to Ed for sitting down with me and giving a really interesting perspective into all the action behind the scenes at Queen's Park Rangers. Here's hoping that the fans will be singing from the stands in a jam-packed stadium in the not-too-distant future, and just maybe the R's will see a return to some form. I could really use your help, and it literally takes just a minute of your time. All you need to do is press that big shiny subscribe button. If you fancy it, write a review about what you've enjoyed and what you think needs to be changed. I love the feedback and I'll read them all. If you want to find us on social media, you can do so at Job Hunter Pod on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram, or you can find us on our brand spanking new YouTube channel. Just search Job Hunter Podcast. Feel free to drop me an email. It's jobhunterpodcast@gmail.com if you fancy coming on the show. You never know, you might inspire someone. Thanks very much for listening this week. I've been Tim French. This has been the Job Hunter Podcast. Stay safe and Merry Christmas.